Inbox number one, inbox number two. Number one was 13,000 unread emails. Inbox number two was, maybe you just turn off your notifications. You don't even see how many unread you have. Number one was the 13,000 notification. Number two. Okay, this is interesting. So a lot of you are inbox number two, meaning you clear those notifications. Maybe you just click on the message and you say you've read it, but you actually haven't, right? Maybe your inbox looks something a little bit more like this, right? Maybe you're like, oh, I cleared out and I have 24 messages, or I have a couple of drafts, but your inbox might also be littered with Canva updates, or hey, your shopping cart's ready for you, or things about updating different apps or things like that. Okay? There's this really cool way to get rid of all that. This is what my inbox is, right? And it's a specific type of tool called Inbox Zero. So every day I get into my office and I look at my inbox, and these are some things that I might see. And I automatically filter it into things I have to follow up on, things that I'm waiting for someone else to respond to, or I just simply need to have time to read this and I don't have time right now, right? So instead of having all of these to go through, I simply decide right away, how do I filter that information, right? So if you're interested, there's a great video. He walks you through step by step how to turn this into that, right? I wish someone would have told me this before I started teaching, because you're gonna get crazy amount of emails from parents. You're gonna get subscription emails from all the different services you use in your classroom, right? You're gonna get emails from your administrator. You're gonna get automatic reply emails for everyone's lunch order, which are gonna drive you nuts, right? And having this would have saved my sanity in the classroom. So definitely utilize Inbox Zero. There's this guy that wrote a book, David Allen. He wrote a book called Getting Things Done. I read this book when I was going through my master's program. And he has a specific rule for how to get those tasks, like those inbox items or things like that, or other things off your to-do list. Because we said earlier, sometimes we feel productive when we cross things off our list, but oftentimes the things on our list are things other people put there, right? So let's listen to him describe the 2-minute rule.
2-minute tip for turbulent times. Actually, it's a tip I'd give anybody, anytime. And those of you familiar with the Getting Things Done methodology will know this already. It's the magic of the 2-minute tool. The 2-minute tool basically says, look, any action you figured out that you could actually complete within 2 minutes of where you are, in the context you are, in the location you are, you're better off to do that right then than to hang up on it, not do it, put it in the backlog or whatever. Because frankly, that's the efficiency factor. It would take you less than 2 minutes to do it, but it would take you longer than 2 minutes to look at it again and review it and reflect on it later on. So this is a pure efficiency factor, the 2-minute rule. Anything you can do in less than 2 minutes, if you need to do it at all, then do it right then. And people say, well, gee, if I spent my whole day doing 2-minute stuff, I never get anything else done. Well, first of all, you'd be amazed how many strategic things have just a 2-minute action that are required on it. And not only that, why should these things still be around? You should delete them, or if they're shown up, then they should be finished in the moment they're there. I never have any backlog of 2-minute stuff because they're all done. So the 2-minute stuff, but first of all, the key thing is decide what's the very next action on something I need to do about any of this change that's happened, any of this stuff I'm involved in right now. What would I need to do next? Once you've decided very clearly and specifically what that is, if you can do it in less than 2 minutes, do it right then. Teflon, boom, in and out. You'd be amazed. I've had many executives tell me that was worth the price of admission just for that habit if they didn't have that already. So hopefully you've built that in, or you will build that in. If it takes less than 2 minutes, do it.
All right, so I'm gonna give you 2 minutes to complete something on your list right now. So that might mean reading an email that you haven't read yet. That might be putting something on your to-do list that you forgot to do. That might mean just texting a friend back that asks you like, hey, what are you doing with it? So 2 minutes, cross something off your to-do list right now. At 7:20, we're coming back. All right, that might be like continue your Snapchat streak or whatever it is that you guys are doing.
Dude, it never does this. Actually, it always does this. Oh, yeah, she dropped it down. That was funny. Alright, I'm gonna take off first.
We love Mevo. Mevo's our favorite.
It's so sweaty.
All right, 1 more minute. Wow, look how productive. About 30 seconds. All right, raise your hand if you got one thing done. You're gonna keep your hands up, okay? Keep your hand up if you had 2 things done. Okay, so there's still some hands up. Keep your hand up if you got 3 things done. Keep your hand up if you got 4 things done. 5 things. Look at that. 2 minutes to get 5 things done off your list. Okay. How many of you actually take 2 minutes to even think about the things that you could get done? Some of you do. Have you heard of getting things done before? Okay, so you've heard about that. Okay. Now, did it take all of these tools to help you get those things done? Right? Is this what you all looked like a second ago? Using a computer, using your phone, using a tablet, using something else to get those things done? Right? Because a lot of people envision this as being productive. Right? I've got all these things going, I'm juggling all these balls in the air to try to get this work done. But in reality, it doesn't take that. It takes a device, right? And it takes efficient work to get those things done. Right? I was able to clear out 4 emails during that time that were either spam, things I just didn't need, right? Articles that I don't need to pay attention to. So my next suggestion is optimizing that use of technology. Right? You know you can create routines on your device. So every time you log in or open it, it will automatically do a specific thing. Right? So on my phone, anytime I get on campus, it automatically turns orange like this. This means I'm in work mode. That means only one person can call my phone, my wife. Right? Other than that, my office phone will ring, and that will go directly to me. Right? But I can't get text messages. I can't get email notifications unless I go into my email. Right? You can create that routine based on time, based on geographical location, based on the activity that you're currently doing, right? So if you're listening to Spotify and that's your study habit, well, you can make that a routine on your phone to eliminate access to other apps, right? Those are ways that you could leverage technology, right? Another routine is, this isn't what my office looks like, but I have a computer in my office. I actually use a Windows PC in my office, but then my actual computer is a Mac. Anytime I log in, I have two windows that open up automatically. One is Chrome, and on Chrome, 3 tabs automatically load. My email loads, my Google Calendar loads, and my Notion board loads. Right? So I don't have to click any buttons, it's automatic. Right? The other thing that opens up is Zotero. Who uses Zotero? No one person. Because you were in my FYS probably. Right? So Zotero is where I put all of my research, all my articles that I use. Right? And the same thing for my Mac. When I open my Mac, one window opens up. I use a different browser where only 3 tabs are available. Again, that's ways that you can build in routines, leverage that technology so that you're more efficient, you're able to get those things done. I'm going to give you access to this presentation. If you want to know how to set those up, just click on the icons and you'll be able to see videos on how to do that. Okay? So far we've talked about what is your why, or how do you determine your why. My why is my family, right? Second, we talked about how do you leverage technology. You can do that by establishing routines or establishing rules like the 2-minute rule. And now we're going to talk about this idea of what does it mean to code, right? And earlier I said we're not talking about computer coding, we're not talking about JavaScript or Python or anything like that. So code is an acronym developed by author Tiago Forte. He has a great podcast and YouTube channel, right? He's all about efficiency and capturing in order to remember. And the reason why he did that is because a couple years ago he had this brain disease that was actually affecting his memory. And he was getting naturally upset about that because he was building a relationship with his wife and his family, and he was forgetting some of these impactful things that he should remember for that. So he came up with this acronym for code: capture, organize, distill, and express, in order for him to build a digital second brain. Okay. Anyone remember a song from their middle school years? What's a song that was popular during your middle school years? That's my thing. When I was in middle school, there was this Enrique Iglesias song, that I Can Be Your Hero Baby, right? That was like so popular at middle school dances. Like usually the last one that got played, so all the guys and the girls could actually dance together. That should not be stuck in my brain, but it is. You probably have something like that in your brain that no matter what you do, it is stuck there. That's in my brain instead of the things I should actually remember, right? Maybe some of the things that you should actually remember are those acronyms that you learned in some of your ed classes. Like what's CBC stand for? Or what does NCTE stand for? Right? Or what is RTI? That kind of stuff, right? So in order for us to remember some of that stuff, well, we should capture it. We should put it somewhere else so that we're not bogged down on our brain to try to keep track of that. So that's where this idea of building a second brain comes from, right? So we're going to talk about each step. The steps that I think are going to be most important today are capture and organize. Okay. How many of you have been writing something on the alphabet chart? Alphabet reducer. All right, I've already forced you to capture and organize it without you even knowing it. Right, so these are ways that you can also do it for your students to help them capture and organize information. Oh, if you click on the microphone, that will take you to his podcast. Okay. So I said earlier, it's not about the tool, it's about the system, right? My system might not work, or my tool might not work for you. Your tool might not work for the person next to you. Okay? And this is why it's important. So, complete transparency mode, right? When I was in 4th grade, I got diagnosed with ADD, right? Which isn't fun, obviously. Teachers tell you you can't focus, you can't pay attention, you gotta do all these things. They were putting systems or tools on me without me having a say, right? You have to sit here, you have to do this thing, you gotta fill out this chart, we gotta make sure you're paying attention, you gotta make sure you're taking your medicine, that kind of stuff. None of those worked for me. So it wasn't until I was able to figure out my own system that I could then pick the tools that match that system. You might be in that place right now, right? Maybe you've been doing the same things you've been doing because a teacher told you to do it, before, because parents are like, this is how you stay organized, this is how you stay focused, and that might be working for you, but try to determine your system and the tools that fit into that system, right? And notice these tools are gonna change over time based on advancements in technology. So, we're gonna try something. The first one was capture. So that just means write it down. As soon as you hear it, as soon as you see it, write it down somewhere, right? So throughout this presentation so far, the 27 minutes that I've been talking, you've probably heard one thing that's sticking with you. I want you to write it down right now. Either in your computer, on your phone, on your piece of paper, capture one thing that's been said right now. I don't want you to forget about it. That could mean you text it to your friend. That could mean you put it in your notes. That could be you write it on your arm if you don't have any paper on. And this is why it's important. Because the idea that you're having right now could be useful as soon as you walk out of here. But if you don't write it down, you're using mental capacity to try to remember it. Okay? So a couple weeks ago, I see some of my Ed Capstone students today. A couple weeks ago, I came up with an activity for us to play the MASH game. Do you guys remember MASH when you were kids? Mansion, apartment, shack, hotel, or house, right? I came up with that idea when I was in chapel. Nothing in chapel was said about MASH. I don't know why it came to me, but I was only able to take that idea and run with it because I wrote it down in my notes app when I was listening to, I don't even remember who was up on stage, right? But I wrote that idea down, I came back to my office and then was able to organize how I wanted that to look, right? So again, you go throughout your day all the time, hearing something, seeing something, and talking to people about stuff, but we usually don't take the time to write it down as soon as we hear it, right? Anyone listen to podcasts? Oh, come on. Some of you, okay. Right? I love podcasts, it's like all I listen to. But as soon as I hear something, I write those ideas down because I don't want to try to remember what episode was this, when was it said. I just write it down in anything. I use all these things. I use a notebook, I use Post-it notes, I use Notion. And I'm gonna dive into Notion a little bit more because that's my way of organizing information too. But again, you're not gonna be able to capture anything if you don't write it down. So start learning the process of just writing it down as soon as you hear it. Okay. This is what one person's idea of capturing looks like. Okay. He's broken it down into specific tasks or buckets of knowledge, right? So there's this YouTube personality who's all focused about productivity. His name's Ali Abdaal. You might have seen some of his stuff before. He's pretty popular. He's written a book too. But he captures based on like what he's doing. So notice he uses voice memos. Anyone use the voice memos app in your phone? Right? Well, this is a tool that actually uses AI that will create a transcript of your voice memo, and you can share those with people too. I use that today. He uses Todoist or Apple Notes, right? So it doesn't really matter what he's doing. He uses a bunch of different stuff, right? Or for a task if he's journaling, he uses tools like Rome Research or Day One or things like that, right? If he's reading a book, either a physical book or Kindle, like he's using the task of highlighting, capturing notes, right? The ones I use primarily are these three up here. And again, it's situational based, it's who I'm working with. I use Todoist probably most often. That's where I wrote my MASH. So I want to know, what are ways that you are already capturing? What are ways you're already capturing? Oh, some people already use Notion. That's great. Good Notes, Notes app. Google Keep. All right, a lot of like those are physical planners. Is that what the word? Google Docs. Right, those are all really good ones. Sticky notes. Sticky notes are great. I've seen my office. I have windows in my office. It's like a fishbowl, to be honest. And I have sticky notes all over my windows, writing on the windows, capturing ideas. Those are great. All right. Now here's where it gets tricky. If you have all of these things, if you're capturing all different places, the next part of this is being able to organize it. Right? So if we're having all these different things, where do you put it? How do you organize that stuff? Do you put all your sticky notes on one paper? Do you take a picture of your sticky notes? Do you put them somewhere else? Do you put the sticky notes on the books that you're reading? That kind of stuff, right? So we're gonna dive a little bit further into how do you use the acronym of CODE, and then how might you use it for students, right? Because you're all gonna be instructing students at some point, right? So how do we also help them go through this process? Okay, so the first thing you should probably do is establish your way of capturing. Okay? And that will probably change over time, right? So use Google Keep, things like Notion, Evernote. I've used all three of these. I've just landed on Notion because it makes the most sense. Right? And I'll actually show you a screenshot of my Notion later. Right? Capture ideas, notes, images, things like that. What was great, I went to a conference last week. I would take notes on just like the Apple Notes thing, and then I would just simply upload those to a Notion page where I could also put pictures of things that I saw at the conference, or a picture of someone's business card, things like that, right? The way I think that translates to students is helping them organize how to take notes in your class, right? I have given you alphabet review. You may have been in class before where an instructor or teacher makes you take Cornell notes. So you want to have a teacher that did that? Right? They're teaching you how to capture and organize when they did that. Right? They set up the structure on the left-hand side, gave you room on the right-hand side to expand on some of those key ideas. Right? We can also do that for students by capturing and organizing. After we capture, we want it to be easy for us to organize that information. Okay? One of the really nice things that I like about an app called Notability is super easy to use folders. Right? So I can download something from Google Docs and put it directly into Notability. And there's other ways that you can do that too. But using tags, using folders, creating categories, or putting things based on project areas is helpful. Here is a template for using a Google Slides interactive notebook where you can click on the tabs and go directly to that section of the notebook. Right? So if I have an idea about interactive posters, well, click on that tab, go directly to that section of the notebook and put those notes in there. Right? The way I think that could translate to students is helping them learn those executive function skills. A lot of them don't know how to organize their notes, or their way of organizing it is just, here's my math binder, here's my social studies binder, here's my English binder, but there's no organization within those things. They just keep it separate by subject, right? So helping them also figure out how to organize or create categories or tabs in those physical folders or those digital folders. So this is my Notion board, or a version of my Notion board. I have the acronym of CODE, so I can constantly remember, right? These would be my separate notes that I take. After I take a note, I can tag it with a status or an idea that I have in that area, right? If you look over here, these are all my weekly agendas. Right, so I could go back to last year at this time, pull up this week and be like, okay, what did I do during this week last year? Who did I meet with? Who did I talk to? What was I working on? Right, so this is also how I capture, because if I've done this presentation the same time last year, I don't want to recreate it. Maybe I want to add a little bit of information or things like that. But I also, you see right here, I connect this to my Zotero account. As I said earlier, that's one of the two things that opens automatically on my computer. If I load anything in Zotero, I've actually combined it to also go directly into my Notion. So now I can just work in one space. And Notion's on my phone, so no matter where I go, I have access to this stuff too. Okay, so the idea of capturing all of our information and then organizing it in some way so I can find it quickly and then go to the next action step. This is what my weekly agenda usually looks like, right? And then every week I come in, I add the things that I have to do for those days. So I'm not gonna show you this week's because there's other things on there. But then I also have my to-dos for each day. I need to be reading something, looking at something, checking emails, checking categories. This is Todoist. Does anyone use Todoist? It's like the best to-do list ever. It's an app that you can have on your phone, and I embedded it here, so anytime I write something in my app, it automatically goes into my weekly agenda that I see every single day. So when I wrote that idea in chapel about creating a MASH activity, well, I didn't have to pull out my phone when I got to my office. I automatically had this up, and the activity was here. And then I can say, oh, I'm gonna do that on Tuesday. And then once that's done, cross that off. So we've done capture. You learned how to capture. You've done organize. We all have our way of organizing information. But then the next step comes to distill that information or to synthesize it in a way, right? Because we could be capturing all day long, but if we don't take the time to actually understand, was this useful, you won't know what to do next, right? So that might be like highlighting the really important actionable points that you want to get across, right? There's a really cool app called Rome Research, where it's like a journaling app, but it helps you synthesize your ideas from day to day and then create a plan for next step in your writing. Okay. The key here for teachers is you're developing your teacher brain. So no matter where you're at, you're gonna see an idea and probably think, oh, how can I bring that into the classroom? So how do you take that and say, all right, then what do I have my students do with it? All right. And I told a story to one of my classes. Has anyone heard of the Singapore Lost City? You guys know where Saugatuck Dunes are? There's a city under those dunes. Right? And I didn't know that until I overheard someone talking about it, and I had to look it up. Right? So I learned, and I helped organize information for my students. There was a city there called Singapore, Michigan. And back during the Chicago fire, they cut down their trees to send lumber to Chicago to rebuild the city. Well, after they cut down their trees, the base layer of those trees died, and the sand started to shift over time, and it covered the whole city, right? If I didn't take the time to write down what I heard other people say, I wouldn't have been able to organize and distill that information for my students to be involved in learning about something in the local area, right? So another way that you can do those things is something called a one-pager or a scrum board. Has anyone seen a one-pager before? So this is an example of a one-pager, right? So you captured your ideas, you organized it, and then you just use one piece of paper to distill that into, it can be artistic, distill it into an expression of knowledge. So this person obviously was distilling the information about how to spread the news using Twitter, right? And then this is an example of a scrum board. I use these in my middle school classroom to help them organize what part of the project they're in. Does anyone know what a scrum board is? Okay, so a scrum board helps people recognize, what have I done? What do I need to do? And then what's the step after that step? Right, so this might be, I need to collaborate with all my teammates. After that's done, we need to create an action plan. After that action's done, we're gonna get it reviewed by the teacher. After that's done, we're gonna work on the next step. So this helps them distill what part of the process they're in. So this is more about how do you distill what you just learned, and this is more about how do you distill what part you're in the process of. One way that you could use the alphabet review, if you're using it right now, you could distill it into one key word that would summarize all of the ideas you wrote down so far. right? So if you had something written down for the letter A, something for S, something for K, well, your acronym could be ASK, right? And then how do you remember that after today? So distilling key insights. There's a great way to do this combining physical books, because I read physical books, you probably read physical books too. You're gonna have students probably read those physical books in their classroom, and then putting it into action in a digital environment.
Make the jump into digital. What is the bridge between the paper world and the digital world?
Usually after like I finish the book, I might want to wait a few days just to like kind of cool off and then kind of go back to it and revisit the back cover where it's like the lessons and actionable advice. If you read a book like Atomic Habits, you can't just apply 20 habits at once. So
Yeah.
I just came up with like a rule of 3. Let me just find like 3 lessons and 3 pieces of actionable advice. And that's kind of like my goal with every book I read. Let me just get 3 and 3. Usually I write the newsletter like every Thursday or Friday, open up a new email doc, I'll look at my book notes and just try to think, okay, what are like the 3 biggest takeaways I had from this book, share like a few sentences about it. Once I'm done with that, it's trying to figure out, okay, now that they know these lessons, how could you possibly apply them, or how can you take this information and turn it to knowledge? Once the newsletter goes out, then I usually copy and paste it and then upload it to Notion.
From the moment you read the book, I bet part of your brain is thinking about the newsletter, the audience, what they're gonna think, what they're gonna expect, right? So it's like you have a reason to keep going and like a filter for things. It takes serious time, effort, energy. You have to say no to things to say yes to books. It's a really cool point to like build an accountability to your life and not just assume you're gonna on a regular basis decide, oh, I'm gonna read a book now.
I love that Tim Ferriss question, like what would this look like if it was easy? And you talk about this in your books, like you never want to start with a blank page. So if I read this book and I take notes on it, I have those notes, I'm not starting with a blank page. So this newsletter, I could write it in like less than an hour, like the whole thing.
So the structure of the newsletter mirrors the structure of the steps of your note-taking process.
Yeah, exactly.
Lessons, actionable advice.
Yeah.
It's not like you're having to do a lot of like reorganizing.
Exactly. So recently, been trying to figure out how can I digitalize my notes to kind of make it easier to find, easier to search.
The steps.
So I'm gonna pause here because these are his capturing, right? He read the book, he captured all the things within the book, right? And then this is how he distilled that information into 3 pieces of actionable advice, or 3 rules that he came up with, right? So that's the next step when we come to distill. We took all this information, we have all these ideas. Are you just left with a nonsense of notes on a piece of paper? Or do you take the step to, how can I synthesize this into 3 bits of information, or 3 things I'm gonna do, or 3 things I'm gonna ask my students to do, right? We're actually gonna get,
So does that make the jump into digital?
we're gonna do this as an activity in a little bit, right? The last thing, and what I think is the most fun thing, and what can be the most fun for your students, is how do you express the things you learned or the knowledge you gained by going through that process of coding, right? So if you distilled it and you have 3 pieces of information, well, you can share it out using something like a Canva. I know that's super popular now. Something like a Google Slides or new tools like Microsoft Sway, right? But for students, it gives them agency for deciding how they want to display their knowledge or how they want to represent the things they did. So a lot of you I know are building a portfolio for your ed classes, right? So how can you express your learning that you've done from all those classes into your portfolio, or how do you represent projects in a visual way? Here's an example of one of my middle school students doing this. Right? We had an activity where they had to create a press release in order to help people respond to a major event, right? So this student wanted to create a video that would go out on a social media platform to help people know what to do, where to go, and who to contact in the event of a natural disaster, right? So allowing them to make those choices. This is a little shameless plug. This is one of my best friends. So he also went to Hope. He was a teacher, he's no longer a teacher, but he makes these awesome YouTube videos helping students learn things that they might encounter in high school, right? So his YouTube channel is called What They Teach You in High School, and he uses Canva to make these, which I think are pretty fun. And he just does it like in his basement.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Empirical Empires. I'm your host, Jay Glover. In our previous episode, we checked out the ancient empires of Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the Indus Valley. Make sure to check out that video if you haven't. And now we turn our gaze both eastward and westward, from the ancient city of Rome to the Great Walls of China. These civilizations not only rose to greatness, but their declines reshaped the course of human history. We begin in the ancient Middle Kingdom, China. This vast, diverse civilization has a history that stretches back thousands of years.
All right, so this is the way he expresses all the things he's learned. He actually does ones about videos. Like, he has a playlist called Watch This, Then That. So he has one about Lincoln, and then like read something, right? Or he has one about Watergate. Watch this and then read that kind of thing. They're really, really fun. But that's a way that you could express, and if you're using Canva, you probably have the ability to do that already.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Empirical.
All right, so we're all gonna do this together. We're gonna go through 4 steps. The first 3 steps are only gonna be a minute. The 4th step is gonna be 2 minutes. And we're gonna go through this process of coding, right? So in 1 minute, you're gonna write down all the things that you need to do for the rest of the week, okay? So that might mean you thinking about, okay, what classes do I have for the rest of the, you're gonna use a notes app or a piece of paper, up to you. And I want you to list absolutely everything you have to do. That could be laundry, that could be going to the grocery store, that could be just getting a haircut, or going to bed at a reasonable hour. All the things you have to do. You're gonna do it for 1 minute. Ready, set, go.
Yeah, just honestly go for it.
That could be call your parents back. Send grandma a birthday card.
It's not recording. It literally doesn't say it's recording. It's not recording. This is press birthday. It wasn't recording.
It's at 37 minutes right now. You can't get me on this one. I've been staring at it for the last 10 minutes. I was like watching this thing.
So dead.
If it get shuts off, they're like, they'll pause.
All right, you have about 15 seconds left. Keep on writing, keep on adding things to your list. I know you have them. It could be start the next season of Outer Banks. I don't know.
Sweet, Alex.
Who's Team John B? All right. Next one, you're gonna organize it now. So you're gonna take all the things you wrote on your list, don't add any more, but you have to organize them. And the ways you can organize them, putting labels, like this is something I'm doing for my work, this is personal, this is something I'm doing for classes, or use tags, right? Here's the thing I need to do urgently, here's something that's important, here's something that can wait, right? Or you can assign it to a specific day. So group it based on, I need to get this done today, or this can wait till Friday. And again, you have 1 minute to do that. Feel like color coding them, but you're gonna organize them in some way. All right, 30 seconds. All right, now you're gonna distill that information. Again, you're only gonna get 1 minute. Now you're gonna limit it to like, what are the top 3 or 5 things I need to get done, right? If you only have 3 to 5 things, now you're gonna be a little bit more specific about, instead of just I need to complete a presentation slides versus I need to work on presentation slides, right? Notice complete is more specific. then just work on it, right? Or it could be, I need to write a paragraph of my paper that's due in a week, that kind of thing. So again, 1 minute to distill a little bit more, add a little bit more context to 3 to 5 of those things you need to do. For about 10 seconds, I muted it this time so you guys don't get anxious. Alright, anytime. And then we're gonna skip this part just for sake of time, but for Express, now you would go through and add specific deadlines to those things, put them on a calendar, or you might create a visual to help you remember what things need to get done in what order. Right? This could be something that you put as a wallpaper on your computer, you print it out and put it on your fridge in your room, or hang it up on your dorm room door, things like that. Right? I would have given you 2 minutes, but I don't have time for that. In the presentation, there's a bunch of resources. Building a Second Brain audiobook, videos from Jeff Sue. This is the guy that had the Inbox Zero. How to use Notion databases to keep things organized. Ways to be a productive professor, online or offline, is really good. And then with the last couple minutes, I'll have any Q&A that you might have. You guys have any questions about code or how to use technology within the app? I can put the Slido up if you want to ask anonymously, or you can just raise your hand. If there's no questions, I'm going to give you access to this presentation right now. So you can either use the bit.ly or the QR code, and you will have access to the slides. And if you do have a question, feel free to email me. My email is at the bottom, adams@home.com.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.